Eastern Conference Finals, puts up 37 points. It is not just what you do, it's how you do it. Jalen, you're going to love this. 5 buckets in the paint, 4 buckets from mid-range, 5 3-point shots, and assists. He was all over the place. Jalen, what did you see from this rookie?
I saw a level of fearlessness that the Miami Heat have been nurturing all season, as we talked about their player development since he got picked. And of course, you get on the big stage and you have a performance like this and people start to pay attention. But I like what they do for him defensively, and that's put him at the back of the zone, along with Gordon Dragic and or Duncan Robinson, so that you protect them defensively. But at the top of the zone, you have Jimmy Butler and or Crowder to take the Boston Celtics out of the middle of the floor. And it's been working like a gem, in particular to bottle up Kemba Walker, force the Boston Celtics into more isolation situations, and keep them from attacking the basket consistently. The zone that starts sometimes as a 2-2-1 full court, that falls back into a 2-3 with Bam in the middle, has been extremely effective in this series.
It has been so effective in this series, and you make a good point that not only does it stifle the Celtics offense, what it does is kind of hide some of the players on the Heat that aren't necessarily strong defenders. Now, I was watching this performance from Tyler Herro, and I was just so taken aback. 20 years old. Only Magic Johnson has scored more in a playoff game at that age, and it was in the post-game interview when I looked at his face, and it really physically manifested for me just how young this man is. Look at his facial hair or lack thereof. He doesn't even have a goatee. Look at that scraggly little hairs down there. He not only can he not connect a beard, he can't even grow a proper goatee, and he just put up 37 points in the Eastern Conference Finals for the Miami Heat. Man, I love this Heat team
But you know what else I see? I see progress, and I see inclusion, and I see hope when I see that young 20-year-old face. You know why? Because the back of his shirt said Black Lives Matter. And not many white athletes would be doing that decades ago in this country. And so now that the NBA players are in a position to work with the NBA to now have that be a theme, I look forward to decades in the future when it's not just black and brown people protesting for equality, but it's a melting pot of people. And this is the kind of thing that encourages me when I see a young man like this understand the magnitude of what he's wearing on the back of his jersey.
And you made a really good point when I asked you about the effect on these athletes and their mindset and performance in relation to the announcement that none of the officers will be charged with the death, frankly, a murder of Breonna Taylor. Now, Jalen, one of the ways that you brought up last segment that manifested itself was in the performance of Jason Tatum. 0 points in the first half, 28 points in the second. Now, how much do you think that is basketball defense strategy, and how much do you think that is the impact of what's going on outside the bubble on players in the bubble?
Dog, I've been watching him extremely close, not only from Duke, but once he got drafted and since he's been playing with the Celtics, and continue to watch him ascend to an all-star player and an all-NBA player. In the first half, dog, he was sluggish. He wasn't as decisive as he normally is. And he's not going to make an excuse for himself, but I saw a player that had some things on his mind. Trust me, I've played a lot of games where things that were bothering me off the floor were in my brain that you try to get out of it as you go perform to do your job. And that was the switch I saw him hit in the second half. I just believe it was too late.
That's a good point. Now, you know I love this Heat team so much. I picked them to beat the Bucks, and they did it. And now they're on the doorstep of going to the NBA Finals in the bubble. But I saw something at the end of the game that was very concerning for the future of this Miami Heat team, and you're about to see it yourself right here. As the game was being contested at the very end of the game, one of the key pieces for what they do on both ends of the floor, Bam Adebayo, seemed to really hurt himself, and you'll see it on this play. It almost looked like he punched himself, but he's grabbing his elbow, but it seemed like he was grabbing his hand for the rest of the game. He stayed in the game, which is very concerning. But Jalen, do you think this will affect him in the rest of this series and potentially the NBA Finals?
I've had a broken hand. It now has a plate and 5 screws in it. I've had a fractured wrist. And the way I saw him running up and down the court, favoring it, I was like, he may have a fractured wrist. But then when he came back into the game, I was like, he good. So I believe that this is something that he's going to be able to play through. He's been outstanding as we anticipated in this series. The Celtics have no answer for him physically up front. He's been dominant, grabbing boards and game-winning blocks. And so obviously without him in the lineup, the Miami Heat don't win this series. But I believe he's going to be healthy, and I believe he's going to continue to be dominant.
It was right back when he came into the game. As he often does, he caught the ball right around the free throw line and made a great two-handed pass to the corner for a shot. And that's when I was like, all right, he can pass the ball with some zip with two hands. I think he's going to be okay. But you talked about the block that he made. You talk about the rebounds that he gets and the points that he gets. But one thing about Bam Adebayo that he does for this team, which frees up Tyler Herro, frees up Duncan Robinson if people ever hit a shot, frees up Goran Dragic and Jimmy Butler, is the screens that he sets. Those, when all the cuts that they make, when they run around screens and all of that, it's just, he's such a great contributor. Now, Jalen, you know I love Tyler Herro and Duncan Robinson so much. And I just want to play some sound. It just demonstrates one of the reasons I love Tyler Herro so much. Please run it.
Point at you. I can't swim, so I
can't
no
swim
reason.
either.
You can't swim? Oh, you got hood tendencies, man. You would run with us. Give me some. You got hood tendencies.
Tyler Herro got hood tendencies, and we got a preview of the huge Lakers-Nuggets game right after this. Stay tuned. You're watching Jalen and Jacoby.
This is the first time I've talked about this topic. I haven't sent any texts about it. Haven't sent any emails about it. And that's one of the things I enjoy about having the opportunity to do this show. Is it's therapeutic and it's honest. And you can see how much I embody my culture by the pictures that are behind me as we've been doing this show for 10 years. I upset. So Jacoby, how about this? I represent this fist on my chest today as a symbol of Black unity, pain, suffering, endurance, and our ability to overcome. There's so many times that we've chanted, "We shall overcome," or said, "Power to the people," or "Black is beautiful," or that Black lives matter. And it continues to get highlighted when situations like Breonna Taylor take place. So it took 194 days for Daniel Cameron, the Attorney General in Louisville, Kentucky, and the jury to come with the ruling. If you don't know the case, there was a no-knock warrant with 3 officers who barged into a home in the middle of a night, shot and killed Breonna Taylor at 26 years old 6 times while she was sleeping. The people that they were trying to execute the no-knock warrant for were caught on the other side of town that same night. They ain't find no drugs. They didn't find nothing illegal. Nothing. They took her life in cold blood. And none of the officers were charged with her murder. And then you slap us in the face by charging the one cop who shot a hole in the wall? That's why we say Black Lives Matter, Jacoby. I watch the news. I read the paper. I know who Kyle Rittenhouse is. I know he went across county lines with an illegal weapon and shot and killed 2 protesters. Our government said, well, he's just a 17-year-old, and, you know, we make those mistakes when we were young. And so now you try to make the people that protest, you stigmatize them. Mob, anarchists, thugs. The power of protest in this Black fist is why we've gotten towards the progress that we have in this country. Whether it's an eye for an eye, whether it's I have a dream, whether it's John Lewis getting in good trouble, that power of protest to use our voice silently, that power to use our voice with strength is why we got the progress that we have. If we never say anything, nothing happens. This is the perfect example of that. And so NBA players are now charged in a bubble to go out and play a basketball game. And as black people, we're still charged, and rightfully so, to act like it never happened. Just act like it never happened. And so I'm disgusted of how we continue to be dismissed. Now, if you wanted to talk about curing cancer or saving animals, I'm all for people that want to do that. I am too. But when it comes to black people, give us that same energy. I don't see it. No-knock warrants should be illegal. And lastly, how many of these cases of unarmed black men and or women do the police lie on a police report? They lied on this police report. You should automatically be arrested for lying on a police report as a public service official. And so I'm just disappointed by the entire judicial system and the processing of policing in our country, and it continues to frustrate and disappoint me.
Jalen, you make some really good points. And when I saw Daniel Cameron announce that there would only be charges for wanton endangerment from Officer Hankinson, I was disgusted just like you. And I was also not surprised. So what I decided to do was really research the events and what happened. How could an investigation that took 195 days end with just this charge? And while we will never truly know what happened in that apartment that evening, because there's different versions of the events, a version of the events in which these charges are not warranted and the activity of the police was not criminal, aside from Officer Hankinson, is the version of events in which they announced themselves again, they opened up the door, they were fired upon by Kenneth Walker, who was Breonna Taylor's boyfriend, and they defended themselves.
That's what happened when you do a no-knock warrant in the middle of the night in an open carry state.
There's another version of the event.
Your ground laws. What do you expect somebody to do when you come kicking down their door? They're going to blast back.
There's another version of the events in which they should have never had a no-knock warrant, and the no-knock warrant was issued with some falsified information. They did not announce themselves, as 11 neighbors said that they did not. They broke down the door, and Kenneth Walker had a legal firearm and legally defended himself, and then the police actually did act criminally in all of that and murdered Breonna Taylor. Now, those are two different versions of the events we will never understand, but you brought up a really good point. What I have in my hand right now is the incident report from that evening from the Louisville Police Department. And on this incident report, it says, forced entry. They checked a box that says no. There was clearly forced entry. I saw the picture of the breaking down of the door. It also says individual victims, Breonna Taylor, injuries, none. Injuries, none. Forced entry, no.
That hurt.
And there's also other documents that I've reviewed that, as you mentioned, Jamarcus Glover, who was the target of the investigation, was across town. There was a document that said that he was apprehended and investigated around midnight, and Breonna Taylor's in the entry in Breonna Taylor's apartment was 45 minutes later. They actually changed the numbers on that document to make the times simultaneously to make the Louisville Police Department look better. So whether or not you agree about the death of Breonna Taylor and the action of those officers was criminal, you cannot disagree that the falsifying of these documents and the cover-up and the corruption, that is criminal. That's objectively criminal when you review these documents. And I'm so disgusted by this that it really makes me think, how do we move forward with this justice system? And I really hope that this ongoing FBI investigation uncovers all of this, which we see as plain as day on these documents. Jalen, your thoughts?
It's it truly baffles me that there are individuals walking the face of the earth that would victim blame when they see George Floyd be murdered while handcuffed by law officials and talk about his past. Or the same with Breonna Taylor. That continues to show us that people still don't feel like our lives matter. Say that they found what they were looking for. That still's not a reason to kill her. Whatever you was looking for George Floyd, there's still no reason to murder Tamir Rice. Like these circumstances continue to happen, Jacoby. And how about we address police lying on the report? Have we heard anybody say something about that? And
Mm-mm.
also, how disgusting is it as a human being? Daniel Cameron gets up on the stage and you don't even say Breonna Taylor's name one time. He didn't
And
say her name once.
And when we turn our attention to the NBA, you think about after the death of Jacob Blake and how the Bucks sort of started this chain reaction that led to games being canceled for days. And you think about watching the games last night and just how difficult it must be for these men, mainly black men, to put their sneakers on and try to win a basketball game inside of a bubble in Orlando, Florida, when they know that all of this is happening outside of that bubble. Now, I know you're not there, but you did play in the NBA and you have an understanding of the mindset. What do you think the mindset of these players is right now, and what kind of conversations are being had when no microphones or cameras are around between them?
Field position. I'm going to keep putting it out there, Jacoby. Field position. We're not going to win this sporting event. It's a football game. We look up at the scores, 400 years of slavery to 0. We're not going to win this game. So as black people, Jacoby, we've been conditioned, regardless to the oppression, the civil injustices, the social injustices, the inequalities that we have to deal with. We're taught that we got to work 2 times as hard to get half as much. We're taught that we're an endangered species from the womb. This is what we're taught, Jacoby. So you unfortunately are forced to put on blinders like you don't have a head, like you don't have a heart, and show up at your job like everything is okay. And that's what these basketball players have to do, and exert energy to play in the game that they love on the biggest stage. You can't tell me that Jason Tatum wasn't affected by the news. I know he was affected. You don't have 0 points and then 28 points in the second half. It just don't happen. It don't happen. Usually when somebody have 0 in the first half, they probably have 12 in the second half. Maybe if they get hot, 20, not 28. Like, all of those guys are hurting in their heads and in their hearts. It's heavy. It's heavy. It's a kick in the butt. It's a stab in the back as tax-paying citizens that we pay the salaries of law-abiding, of law enforcement, and we still continue to see these circumstances take place. That's why it's very important. It's extremely important to vote. You don't have to wait till November 3rd. You can vote right now. Do not wait. Make sure you vote.
Now, Jalen, obviously we are going to discuss the game last night in the Eastern Conference Finals, but I really encourage everyone to understand how body cams were or weren't used in this, how a no-knock warrant was issued by Judge Mary M. Shaw, and how the battering ram was used and how the handguns were used. Because while we cannot bring back the life of Breonna Taylor, we can reform the way that all of this was used and will continue to be used by police moving forward. We will move forward and discuss.
What about lying on the police report? They lie.
Right
all of these situations, they lie on the police report. That should be a crime in itself. What about the other officers? I just don't understand how you can lie on a police report.